All right, WWE Crown Jewel 2024 in the books. We have our first Crown Jewel champions crowned, Cody Rhodes and Liv Morgan. And I'm going to let you guys hop in. And as always, we will react to everything that happened today in Saudi Arabia. Yes, our first Crown Jewel champs crowned. You had a very interesting start to the show with Solo Sikoa pinning Roman Reigns. We'll go through every match as usual, get your guys' thoughts as you hop in. Of course, this is a different reaction than we usually do. Usually we're used to these, at night on a Saturday, but this one's during the day in the States. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And again, hop on in and we'll talk about all these matches from the show. I kind of waited because you know how WWE and Triple H like to do this. I'm like, I wanted to wait and see if Cody actually got out of the ring without getting attacked by Kevin Owens. I'm going to assume that's still coming at some point, maybe. They're doing the post show now, so I'm going to keep an eye on it as we do this reaction stream because you just never know, right? After the last time we saw how this played out with Kevin Owens attacking Cody out in the parking lot and all this other stuff. So, I think they're doing the official ceremony or whatever it is, or maybe that's what that was. Maybe they're using what they did in the ring as the official crowning ceremony. But I'm curious to see if Kevin Owens were to get involved with Cody after the show is officially over here. But again, guys, hop in, give me your thoughts on the show, give me your grades, your scores, whatever you want on what you thought of WWE Crown Jewel 2024. And we will go through each of the matches. We'll start at the top because we did start with the six-man tag, the Bloodline versus the Bloodline, as you did have the originals, Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, and Jimmy Uso taking on Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga. And we kind of got what we thought out of this one, right? As you know, we didn't get many of our predictions right. I told you guys this was probably going to be a big flop on the predictions. I got the two Crown Jewel champions wrong, and we missed another one somewhere. Was it Seth Rollins beating Bronson Reed? That's the one I said I was going to regret because I knew I should have picked Seth Rollins. But this one seemed pretty obvious. I said the reason you do this match is because you need Solo and company to get a win here. It's the only way that doing the Survivor Series War Games match makes sense, right? And so you needed Solo and company to be able to get that victory. And it was here, although it was probably the bit of a surprise for people. I think most people maybe thought that maybe Solo was going to pin Jimmy. Maybe he's the guy that's taking the pin in this one. But that didn't happen. Solo pins Roman Reigns. And so if you wanted to feel like Solo's got a little bit of momentum back, the best way you could have done it was to have him pin Roman, and that's exactly what they did. Probably not going to, be everyone's favorite thing, but it does give you a reason to have this War Games match at Survivor Series now. If, Roman and company win, there's no reason to do it. So it's kind of, how they had to do this. And so Sami getting involved, we felt like it was going to be that big moment. And he did. He comes out. And I like the way they did the Sami thing because you guys know I've talked about it on the videos here recently. I mean, look, Sami and Roman are the ones that are going to be the toughest to get back together because they're not blood. Like Sami is not part of the actual family bloodline, as we know, just like Jey Uso told him and all of that. And so, Sami, given what he did to Roman at the Royal Rumble, all those things, like they're going to be the ones that are the toughest to get back on the same page. And so now having them accidentally hit each other, now Solo ducks out of the way there. That adds more in terms of like the tension that was already there between the two. They haven't interacted kind of since that big point, since the full breakup and everybody kind of goes their own way and everything. But, now I think you kind of have it set up to where you guys can give me your thoughts, but I think this all has to be setting up to where everyone is still frustrated with each other coming out of this. They just lost the match. Jey, is frustrated, or Jimmy's frustrated with Jey. Jimmy's frustrated with Sami. Roman, we know, is frustrated with Sami. Roman's probably going to be frustrated with Jey. Like, you just keep going down the line, right? And so there's one person who is going to be able to get everybody back on the same page, and I wonder if that's where we get the return of the wise man, Paul Heyman, to get everybody from stop the bickering, stop doing all this. You have to reunite here for this one match. And if anyone can kind of give that speech, it's Paul Heyman, who can give that big speech about how they all have to be on the same page to be able to win this thing. So Maybe that's where we're headed. But as always, I want to know what you guys think about that coming into it. And again, leave your comments. We will get to your comments here shortly. I'm going to try to run through some quick thoughts on some of the matches. And as always, we'll open this up for a pretty lengthy amount of time, answering your questions, talking about comments, all this other stuff. Yeah, by the way, just to note on this too, I was going to bring this up. Yeah, that was the one where Jimmy, I think, made the save a little bit late there. Like, that pin was pretty much, I was like, wait a second, is this thing over? But it did seem like there was a slight delay on trying to break up that pin, and I did put that in my notes. I'm like, yeah, I think that was probably not exactly what they wanted there for sure. So, but nonetheless, the Bloodline do get the win. We'll talk more about that one. Well, the Solo's version of the Bloodline get the win. We'll talk more about what that means here in just a few. But like I said, I'm going to quickly run through some thoughts. And as I'm doing that, I'm watching Cody Rhodes and Liv Morgan make their way into the WWE experience in Saudi Arabia. And I'm also watching Solo and the Bloodline come out here. So you guys let me know if there's anything important that they say, because I don't have the sound on, of course, as we're doing this. But let's go through everything else here quickly with some thoughts. The Women's Championship match. Look, I told you, I said, with this match and the match later on, the United States Championship match, I just thought, unless I can make a hard argument as to why one team should dethrone the champions, it's really hard to pick anyone but the champions. And so Bianca and Jade got the win in that one. No surprise, I think, to have them win. Like I said, we're not to that point yet to where they're teasing any kind of breakup, anything like that. If they're doing the match at WrestleMania 41, or maybe it's going to be later down the line, there's no reason to even start that at this point. So another win for Bianca and Jade. I just thought that it made the most sense. I said, maybe they flip the belts back to Damage Control. Maybe Chelsea Green and Piper Niven get a run with them. But I'll say this. I have been very impressed with Lash legend and Jakara Jackson. I think that, yes, they are still going to keep developing and all these things, but I really think they've got something with them. I've been impressed just in the little bit that they've been on the main roster to this point. And so I'm very fascinated by kind of what they do now moving forward, because, they got the opportunity of the championships here. Didn't think they would win by any means, but I hope that they continue to keep developing them, because I think they've got something in both of them. I mean, to me, I think, Lash Legend certainly has the it factor and all that. And if you watch kind of her improvement from day one in NXT to where she is now, I think there's a lot to like about that pairing moving forward. So, but again, Bianca, Jade get the win. Not a lot more to add to that. I just think that the women's tag team division, it is what it is right now, and you've got to find, worthy challengers in terms of taking those belts off of them and feeling like the next big team to get that reign. You guys let me know who you think that may be, but for now, I think here we are with your champs, still Bianca and Jade, and we'll get there at some point in terms of the tease for the breakup and all that, but we're just not there to this point. All right, Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed. Talked about this one going into it. I said, hey, there's a couple different arguments you can make for this, right? And of course, I picked Bronson Reed. I said the reason you could is to say, well, maybe Bronson Reed wins match one, just like Drew McIntyre won match one against CM Punk, and maybe that's a scenario where you keep going. You get to a second match, you get to a third match, all this. But there was the rumor that came out earlier in the day today about how they were going to announce this fatal four-way match, which they did officially announce. It's going to be Rollins versus Priest versus Dominic versus Sheamus on Raw for the right to face Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, well, 100% guaranteeing that Bronson Reed ain't winning this match. And look, Seth, I know some people said it's been a long time since Seth's won a match, of this kind of, setting on a PLE and TV match and all that, just because, off with the injuries, wasn't winning those big matches before. And so I get it. But, like I mentioned, I also made the argument that if you give Bronson Reed kind of that signature win, that can really help him. But what are they going to do now? I think it's pretty clear. Bronson Reed is going to take Seth Rollins out of this fatal four-way match not tomorrow night, 2 nights from now on Raw. He is going to be the person that costs Rollins. I said I just did not think that they were putting Rollins back into the world title picture yet. And because of that, I was like, well, maybe they're not going to have him win this match. But now I see the vision, right? They're going to have him win this match, and it's going to be Reed who keeps him from getting back into the world title scene, because I would fully expect Reed to take out Seth Rollins in that match on Monday. It's a fatal four-way match. You're not getting any DQs, anything like that. So it's the perfect scenario for Reed to get some of his back. I still thought Bronson Reed looked really good in this match, but you do want to kind of build Rollins back up, and so I can completely understand why he wins this one. But, they kept playing it up as though Rollins takes him out with, 3 curb stomps or whatever it was, and Reed still just gets up and he's staring at Seth Rollins. The same theme we talked about, right? He's gotten up from these just complete, car crash type scenes in the back, whether it's with Braun Strowman, whether it's with Seth Rollins and those kind of things, and he just keeps getting up. And so they're still pushing him as the monster. And I hope, because we've seen this before, right? I hope that still coming out of this, Bronson Reed has as big of an impact as he's had to this point over the past couple months. Because if not, I feel like it's a missed opportunity. I don't think this one match, him losing, is going to define anything, right, like that. I don't think all of a sudden say, well, he's done for now. Not the case. He's going to get his back on Monday. But Rollins gets the win here. I thought they really played it up about as well as you could in terms of making sure it was clear that Bronson Reed may have lost this match, but he's still an absolute monster. And Rollins kind of, overcomes not really an injury. They weren't really playing it up as an injury, but everything that, Reed did to him on Monday, everything like that. So, and of course, it all started with Reed attacking Rollins and everything. So, I know you guys are weighing in on the Bloodline match. We will get back to that shortly. I know a lot of people were not thrilled exactly with, maybe exactly how it played out, but it got us to the destination that we expected. But, we will get back to that shortly, guys. If you're just hopping in, we're going to do some quick thoughts on every match real quick, and then pretty much for the rest of the show, it's just going to be answering your questions, talking comments, and all of that. So, all right, let's talk about the women's Crown Jewel title match. That was the next one on the card. And it was Liv Morgan getting the win over Nia Jax. You guys know I picked Nia Jax. I'm just getting, XXX here in terms of how many I'm getting wrong on this show. But I said, this was one where we did the prediction several days ago. Then I think the injury had come out, talking about Rhea Ripley, and you're thinking, okay, how are they going to maybe play this into it? But then the report comes out, and it's like, Rhea's not going to be there. Like, she is not going to play a factor in this match. And, there was another report, I think, suggested that it was going to be Rhea against Raquel Rodriguez this show. So maybe how much kind of changed here? Was it always going to be Liv? I don't know. I don't know what the Rhea injury, how that factored into this, because you would have figured she would have played a role in this match in some way, but she didn't. And so Liv gets the win here. It's more interference, more Judgment Day interference, like with Raquel and Dominic and all that. You had kind of the scenario with Tiffany Stratton coming out, trying to cash in. Jax encourages her not to cash in and get to the back. Tiffany comes back anyway. She winds up getting squashed in the corner on the outside after Jax, takes out everybody and everything. So, but, Liv gets the win here. And I think, again, when you kind of look at the way this thing played out, I was still probably more in favor of Nia winning this one just because I thought maybe it fit a little bit better with the story. And I also thought that you would have maybe a bit of a stronger cash-in possibility from Tiffany Stratton. Didn't think she would cash it in, but I thought you may have had a little bit something else play out, like I mentioned, maybe where, Liv and Nia are both down, and all of a sudden Tiffany has to make a decision, right? She kind of did that at the start, but they didn't really play it up more than that. And I know some people were saying, well, was she going to cash in and win all 3 titles or anything like that? She was never going to win the Crown Jewel title, that's for sure, because as we kind of see, and again, this is probably me overthinking this, but you really understand, like, the Crown Jewel championships are going to be pushed this way in terms of it's the first time, right? Like, this is the biggest part of this is that it's a show built around these 2 titles. And so you're not going to have someone cash in and win one of those titles right away, I don't think. So Liv gets the opportunity to do this. Nia got the Queen of the Ring win in Saudi Arabia several months ago. Liv, gets they've gone all in on Liv Morgan. There's no other way to put it, right? I mean, you guys know that now. So they are all in on Liv here. And now with Rhea out for a bit, however long that is, I mean, Liv is still on top. She's talking about, bringing up retiring Becky Lynch and all this other stuff. And so that's kind of, look, this is something I struggle with too sometimes. I mean, I think it's just like you're looking at, Nia versus Liv, and I know it is kind of like it's wrestling. You suspend your disbelief and those kind of things. But, and look, Liv had brought it up before, right? Like, she had beaten Nia before, and I'm thinking, okay, well, Nia's got to beat her this time. But it didn't happen. And like you mentioned here, I mean, it's, just the look of it. Yes, like Liv compared to Nia, those kind of things. But, hey, it's wrestling, and these are the things that, you have to be able to, I guess, sometimes you push it a certain way. And so they clearly did not want Liv to lose this match. And you could say, too, she's the one that had more people interfere. And like I said, I really have to believe that Rhea would have played a role in this. Maybe it wasn't to cost Liv in this match, but not having Rhea here, you have to feel like they changed some stuff around. Whether they changed the winner around, we don't know. But I have to believe that was kind of the scenario. And so as I'm watching this here, I'm seeing Michael Cole interviewing Cody and Liv Morgan. I'm just waiting for Kevin Owens just to soar into the picture and just completely blindside Cody Rhodes. We'll see if that happens. Probably not. But nonetheless, all right, guys, keep your comments coming. Shout out to Right Hand Cam who jumps in here. Proud member of our Tribal Chiefs tier here at the Wrestling Reaction channel. $2 super chat. Really appreciate that as always. Always love you joining these live streams. And yeah, 7.5. Well, I'll give you my score in a second. I'm having some trouble with my score for this one. But I think once I fully talk about every match, which we're almost there, I'll be able to better form my score for this one. I went up and down a little bit as I was going throughout this show. But all right, so let's get to, we only have we didn't even get a match out of this one, but we'll quickly talk about Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, which was the match that didn't happen. But you guys know, I said going into it, I said, here's the way this thing has to play out. We didn't know we weren't going to actually get a match, but it has to be Kevin Owens being the person standing tall after this, no matter what you do, and that's exactly what they did here with Kevin Owens just, completely coming off he goes up to the railing, jumps off, elbow drop through the equipment case or whatever it was. And so, you have Randy Orton down and out. And that was the whole point here, is you wanted to make sure that it was showing that Kevin Owens would take this to a level that you would have never expected him to take it to, right? Months ago, we would have never thought this would be the scenario. But now, given what Randy Orton did to him, all the frustration that's come out with Kevin Owens, it led to this. And you had, of course, several memorable moments throughout this thing where you're getting Adam Pearce getting the RKO, Kevin Owens is stunning a referee. So if you weren't going to give us a match, they made sure to hit all the right buttons in terms of making sure you still got your money's worth, because it felt like a match. It just wasn't an official thing there with these two just trying to, yeah, exactly. Look, T-Rob says it here. And by the way, always enjoy you joining there with the Roll Tide introduction as always. But yeah, they have to keep building up the fact that Kevin Owens will do anything. And he is sort of unhinged at this point, and it's all because of what Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes have done to him. And so I like the way they play that up here. I thought, like I said, going into the prediction video, I'm like, maybe he aims more for the back and those kind of things, really that cerebral type approach on Randy Orton, but he still, got what he needed out of this in terms of being the person standing tall. And by the way, too, I know you guys have talked about it, but I haven't mentioned it enough here, but I love how Kevin Owens is wearing the T-shirts of the two dads, right? The Dusty Rhodes and the Bob Orton Jr. T-shirts as he's feuding with Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. Like, that's perfect heel work for Kevin Owens. So, yeah, but by the way, shout out to you guys jumping in there. Yeah, we will get back to Bloodline stuff here shortly. We're just kind of doing this different than we usually do, just to quickly get our thoughts out of the way on every match. Then that way we can spend the last, 30-plus minutes just talking what you guys want to talk about with all the stuff coming out of it. So we'll get back to the Bloodline and everything else. But yes, Kevin Owens standing tall here, and I'm still watching this. They're handing out the rings now. I don't know if you guys are watching the post show, but they're handing out the big, huge. So they not only got the huge championships, they got these big Super Bowl type rings too. So they're going all out for these Crown Jewel moments here. So we'll see if anything else happens on the post show here. But all right, so yeah, look, this is a good possibility too. Before we move on, I think you could still maybe have that scenario where all of a sudden KO and Orton come back to each other like, hey, we almost had to beat the hell out of each other to realize how much that we hate Cody. And so that may not be good for Cody. All right, I'm seeing Triple H handing this ring to Cody right now. I'm still waiting for Kevin Owens. He's got to be there, right? He's got to be there. Come on, it's got to happen. All right. Let's go to the triple threat match. I thought was way better than, again, the expectations going into it. I told you guys the same thing we said earlier. Unless I have a reason to pick somebody to beat the champion, I just could not make a convincing enough reason for Andrade or Carmelo to win. But this was a great match. This definitely exceeded expectations. They went all out, and I thought this was the best match of LA Knight's reign so far, which I said it needed, right? His reign has just not felt like anything that special, and it's all about kind of how you build up the opponents. And I think, you had the 7-match series. We talked about that with Andrade, Carmelo. You don't get a winner. LA Knight stands tall. And even with that, I told you, some of my hesitation in this was like, is it going to really make Andrade and Carmelo look really weak here if they come out of this with nothing, again, having not won the 7-match series, no one, and then, all of a sudden they come out of this with nothing. I was curious if that would be the case, but they look good. I mean, it was a really good match, and so at least maybe, you get these guys into something different. They're not just going to keep beefing with each other here after the series. But LA Knight wins. I think you just gotta find that next something for LA Knight, and I wonder if it's just simply waiting for AJ Styles to come back. And I told you, I mean, I think that may have certainly played a role in this. All right, I feel comfortable now, before I continue, turning off the post-show, which of course means someone's probably going to get jumped on this thing at some point. But you guys let me know. You're all over it. If anyone gets jumped on the post-show or anything like that. So, I think LA Knight winning was the only call, really. I just did not see the title changing hands. And now we wait to see if it's AJ Styles, someone else getting an opportunity to dethrone him. I said going in, if he'd have lost the title here, I just think we would have looked back at this reign and said, boy, that was very uninspiring. So I think, him winning, good call here. And again, I think at least Andrade and Carmelo come out of this, at least have a good showing here on a PLE, which they needed after, not that they had any bad matches in the 7-match series. They just didn't get anything out of it in terms of no one winning. So, I think that's it. I think it's got to be Styles, because, I mean, you've already got the history built in with those two. And I looked at the roster, guys, I don't know who else it is other than AJ Styles. We've mentioned the SmackDown roster, and you guys know I brought it up before. I'm curious, when we get to the next draft and those kind of things. And remember, there is the report out there, and I don't remember how long ago it's been since we talked about this, but, SmackDown's going to go to 3 hours, at least for a certain set amount of time. If that happens, they need that roster a little bit more, I think, to be able to get you some mid-card, potential on there. And yeah, I mean, Kaiser, someone else, give Kaiser an opportunity, someone like that. I think that's what this needs right now. Nothing against Andrade or Carmelo. I think they're saving Carmelo's big win for further down the line, to kind of give him that next sort of push. But for now, I think, LA Knight winning was the right call. So, all right, then we get to our main events, Gunther and Cody Rhodes. Once again, draw one in the wrong column for Blake here. I said I thought Gunther was going to win this one. I thought it was really about Kevin Owens, maybe potentially getting involved. But like I mentioned, a little while ago, it's overthinking it sometimes, because it's the first Crown Jewel title. You want to put it on your ace. You want to put it on the quarterback, as everybody calls him. And so putting it on Cody Rhodes makes absolute sense. And I know some of you guys mentioned that in the comments. And again, it's me almost going too far in the old school professional wrestling mindset versus playing the value of your top star, which is Cody. We can talk about Roman and all this other stuff, but still, Cody is their guy. He is the guy right now. And so you want to have the prestige. Yeah, I mean, exactly. We were 100% overthinking it. And listen, guilty as charged. I do this all the time. But it's more getting outside of that, okay, professional wrestling storyline type mindset and getting into, okay, business, right? It's the company. What is the company looking at? Well, Saudi Arabia is paying them $1 gazillion. It's the first championship, and I can guarantee you that if Saudi Arabia had to choose who they wanted to hold that championship for the first time, it was not going to be Gunther. It was going to be Cody Rhodes. So, yeah, Ace Gunther. Come on. I mean, Gunther's the real ace here, right? But, yes, we can definitely see how, Cody winning makes a lot of sense for them. And so, and look, it almost also gives Kevin Owens, I think, another, if you do want to tie it into a storyline, it gives Kevin Owens another reason to despise Cody Rhodes, right? Because now he's got this huge championship, this Crown Jewel title. He's got this ring, which I know he's not going to be carrying the title around and everything all year. But still, I think that it does give Kevin Owens another reason just to completely be so frustrated with what Cody Rhodes has become. But great match. I thought it was a good, really good match between the two. And of course, the finish. I know you guys have seen it. Everyone's putting the images out there side by side. It's the Bret Hart Roddy Piper finish, where you have, basically Cody rolls over, gets the pin on top of Gunther. And so you at least protect Gunther a little bit there, and that was the right call. I mean, I didn't think you were just going to have Cody beat Gunther straight up in terms of hits the crossroads and 1, 2, 3, that's it. He still pins him, but he does it in a way that does protect Gunther a little bit. It's just sort of your flash pinfall, quick counter, which is fine, I think, if you're going to do it this way. Because let's also call it what it is, right? If this was not a show that was built around champion versus champion, they're never doing this match right now. Like, and you can, again, we kind of see it on facial expressions and those kind of things. We know what WWE's getting out of this, but, again, this is one where you just kind of have to put this into a little container in terms of this is going to be contained to this, build up 1 month each year, and it's not really going to mean a whole lot elsewhere unless you have, certain things play out like it did in the Bloodline, which we are about to get back to. But it's fine. Cody wins. I don't know if it's going to mean the rest of the way, but yeah, it does kind of give Cody that first triumphant, image as your champion, and for what the Crown Jewel title was created for, that's probably exactly what they wanted, is to put it on Cody the first time, and we kind of go from there. I wondered if the focus thing was going to come into it. Gunther talked about Cody not being focused and all of those things because he's dealing with all the drama with his friends and all that, but yeah, it just didn't happen. So Cody gets the win. He's your champion, and Cody's got bigger things to worry about now coming out of this, which I think will eventually be another match with Kevin Owens, and we know eventually it will be another match, or it will be kind of the big match with Randy Orton at some point. All right, guys, we're halfway through here. We've already run through every match. We talked about everything. So now it's time to get to what you guys have been talking about in the comments. As always, if you want to make sure I see your comment, you can leave a super chat, just like Right Hand Cam did earlier. Leave that super chat. That way I don't miss it, because we do have different comments coming in and all that. Good to see a lot of you guys who I know are regulars of these live streams. We only do them for the PLEs, but we'll try to do more moving forward. Just don't usually have a chance on Raw and SmackDown nights to do those. So nonetheless, I appreciate you guys jumping in. So give me your scores. Earlier we talked about Right Hand Cam earlier. Good 7.5. I would say that's about right for me. I think that overall, I don't know if there was anything that I thought was just so completely, bad or anything. I really didn't. I thought the main event was really good. I thought the triple threat match exceeded my expectations. Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed, I think, accomplished what you needed to accomplish. The Crown Jewel women's match, it was okay. I don't have anything else to add other than that. It was really all going to be built on interference, so it was a lot on both sides where you have two heels going up against each other. So those matches are always hard, I think, to really sink your teeth into. And so, yeah, the starting match with the Bloodline, it was definitely more about the story than it was the match. It was more about the post-match, which has kind of been the theme, as we know, with the Bloodline story. So, yeah, but we'll see where we go from there. All right, I'm going to get some of your comments here, and I'm going to jump into the ones. If you did leave some comments earlier, you want to kind of repeat what you said, do that. I try to scroll back up to get everything, but sometimes I can't do it. So, all right, let's jump into some of your comments, guys. Okay, so, Brian, I'm going to find this one here. So I said earlier, I think that now we are in that position where the only way you get everybody back on the same page, because Roman and Sami are going to have beef coming out of this. Jay's, going to have to push Jimmy away a little bit. Roman's going to be pissed at Jey, wondering why Sami got involved. Jimmy and Sami don't have the best relationship. The person that has to bring it all back together, the wise man. He's the manipulator, right? He's the person who can manipulate each of these relationships exactly where they need to be for everyone to get, the revenge for Paul Heyman. Like, remember, we're 4 months ago, that Heyman's getting, taking the shot through the announce table there at Madison Square Garden. And so I think having Paul Heyman come back is the right call here to get everybody on the same page. You can, everybody's combined now, or maybe they decide to wait on Heyman. But it seems like they're building towards that, doesn't it? With Paul Heyman coming back to get everybody united, because as we saw in the lasting visual here, it's really hard to see how these four guys are all going to unite themselves. So you got to have somebody that puts it all together. So I think it's Paul Heyman. And how soon he comes back, maybe it is, as Jey Uso says here. Always good to hear you here in the live stream and on all the videos as well. Maybe it is going to be, Friday on SmackDown. Because remember, we're 4 weeks away now from Survivor Series, right? So we're officially 4 weeks away. So you got to put everything in motion to get Heyman back in. And I think he's the one. So, yeah. All right. We'll get to June's come here. Yeah, you're right. We keep saying, Orton is going to eventually turn on Cody, but we've been saying that for a long time now. So when is it going to happen? They keep teasing it with the way Orton's looking at the belt. They're doing that for a reason. But we have been saying it for a long time. I'm not going to argue that. It's been a long time we've been talking about this. But I have to wonder, is this going to be, WrestleMania? Is it going to be the Royal Rumble? Those are certainly the biggest options. I don't think Triple H is doing that match on anything other than one of the top PLEs of the year. So they're either going to do it at the Royal Rumble, they're going to do it at WrestleMania, or maybe it's further down the line. But the way they're building it now, I think it's sooner rather than later. So just my opinion, but hey, as we know, my opinion is not always right. So there you go. But all right, let's keep trolling on down here to see what else we've got. But yeah, it's a good point here, Rob. I mean, they can get through about 3 to 4 weeks of material on one show. There's no doubt. And I think that's where, like, think about if this was just like they only did this on Raw or SmackDown and they didn't do it on both. I mean, they need both of those right now, I think, to be able to do this entire Bloodline story. And, you know, it makes sense because you have people on both brands that are having to interact. And I've said many times, you guys know my thought on the brand split. I just don't care about it. If they want to send people back and forth, so be it. I just don't care. I used to care, but like I don't anymore. Like they've ignored the rules so many times. You know, if the brand split, like I'm just like, give me the best show. I don't care who you put on there. If you need to bring someone from SmackDown to do it, great. And for a storyline like this, that's the top storyline in the company, bring anybody you want from SmackDown or Raw or vice versa. So, yeah, but it's a great comment here. How big do I think Roman's tribal beef is? Boy, there's that might be the question of the day. I'll get back to you on that one. But yeah, it's quite a great quite a great question, I will say. I can't give you an official answer on that, but we'll see if people can weigh in on that themselves. But hey, appreciate you joining. Appreciate all you guys joining in. Yeah, always enjoy the comments. And I think Jey gets another singles title run after this. I mean, Jey is someone at this point where it's like, he just doesn't need it. I mean, Jey is so over now that, and I think that's the thing, right? People will pick on Jey and they'll talk about, well, he's not the best wrestler. Or I don't see him as, 5-star matches and all this other stuff. But the formula in WWE is very simple. Like, you just got to get over. You just got to have the fans care about you. And when I watch these shows, and I watch this show specifically today, you can't tell me that Jey Uso isn't probably one of the top, 3 or 4 people on the entire show. I would say Cody Rhodes is on that list. Roman Reigns is on that list. I think Randy Orton's probably on that list with the way that you have the engagement with the fans and the singing and all that. But like Jey Uso is right there. So I think we're kind of at a point now with Jey. Could he get another Intercontinental title run? Sure. But I think it's like, is Jey ever going to be the world champion? Maybe. He's over enough to be the world champion. It's just a matter of do they want to put him in that scenario. But I will say Jey will get another singles opportunity at some point in the future. But of course, right now he just doesn't need it. They don't need it for the story. But again, you never say never with someone like that who is just, he's so over. The fans love him. And again, for anyone that wants to pick on the wrestling and that kind of stuff, his popularity is only getting better. It's just getting better. Again, go back and watch the entrance on this show, right, for Jey Uso. Pretty remarkable. So, didn't like the show here. Is that what you're saying? Well, look, I don't think you're alone. I was on, look, it's Twitter sometimes. You guys know what I think about Twitter. I'm on there, but sometimes it happens. But, I don't think this will probably be the most well-received show. I think, again, some of the stuff is just kind of thrown together. Having to do the Crown Jewel title matches, they're sort of just built into the show, right? And you've seen Triple H move away from that. Whether it's, Hell in a Cell as a pay-per-view. No, he moved away from that, and he's doing Hell in a Cell as a blow-off match. It's not an entire theme pay-per-view. And so this one's one where you kind of do have to, you're building in 2 new titles and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. But they had more matches on this show, so that helped, right? So, Jey Uso going with Cody versus Orton at WrestleMania 41. That was my prediction after WrestleMania 40. I said I would go with that. I think I had Rock and Roman as, the obvious other one. What else did I have on that? You guys can go back and watch my early WrestleMania 41 predictions. I think I had John Cena versus Drew McIntyre on that. I was really feeling the Drew McIntyre-John Cena promo battle, but I think I would change that now, in my opinion, to maybe Cena versus Gunther, potentially. But, yeah, I could see them holding this off for Cody. But they definitely still are teasing Cody versus Roman versus Rock. Maybe that triple threat, another combination for Cody. He's got to finish the stuff with a Rock. Does it happen at WrestleMania? I would think so, but if not, Randy Orton's not a bad, backup plan, I think for sure. So, all right. Yeah, I think point here, Jacob Fatu is going to eventually get pissed at Solo Sikoa. And I think you've already seen the seeds, and you guys know we've talked about that in other videos. At some point, Jacob Fatu is going to snap. And whether that's at the direction of The Rock or it just kind of, naturally builds towards that big moment, Solo has tried to hold Jacob Fatu back time and time again, and we've seen Solo come up short, right? Time and time again. You guys know I've talked about that. But finally, Solo gets his big moment here by pinning Roman Reigns. How does that change maybe the way that Jacob Fatu looks at Solo now? Finally proving that he can get this big win. But maybe it's Solo who cost them the match at Survivor Series. And does that kind of lead to a big breaking point? So they've still got a ways to go in terms of the mileage on this. And I know people think this, they're like, oh, this Bloodline story is on and on, but we're just getting started here. Like, this thing is going to keep going for a while because you've got to build to this big War Games match. Then you got to know what the fallout's going to be. What's Roman going to do after? What's Jimmy and Jey going to do after? What's Zayn going to do after? Right? And then it's like, well, what does the Bloodline do to Solo? What does The Rock, how does he come back into the picture? So you still got a long way to go on this story. And so Jacob Fatu snapping on Solo does seem like one of the obvious directions. It's just, when are we going to get there? Right? So, I think that's definitely something that they're building towards, for sure. So, all right. So let's keep going down the list here. Again, guys, for jumping in for the first time, hit subscribe button, hit the like button too if you're in here. You enjoyed, all of our WWE coverage here, Wrestling Reaction. Hit that like button. I always appreciate you guys jumping in on that. And so you can also, you guys know I keep telling you before we jump to some more comments. Let me pull this up on the screen here. You can also follow me on Twitter. I mentioned I am on Twitter, at WrestleBlake. Follow me there. I'll probably jump on there after the live stream and discuss some other stuff. Be sure to follow me there. Lots of WWE content. I try to tweet more, but sometimes I also try to follow the advice. Don't tweet. So we'll see which one it is. So, all right, let me get back up to some of the comments here. All right, there was one here. Let me see. All right. Yeah, here we go. So, am I the only one who loves how the OG Bloodline put the final boss behind them like he didn't show up at Bad Blood? Yeah, act like The Rock wasn't even there, right? Love to see the look on their faces if his music hits at War Games. Yeah, that's a good, interesting question. Is The Rock going to, come back for another appearance after the show at War Games? Could that be something that leads us in the direction of wherever they are going? Because after War Games, the next big show is the Rumble, right? It's a ways away, but you've got Saturday night's main event in there and all that. I think they've got a Madison Square Garden show somewhere in there in December. So I think that, Triple H, again, not afraid to hint way down the line. He's not afraid to drop those hints of what may be coming 4 months, 6 months down the line. So could The Rock come back? And I think that's going to be the breaking point, too. We just talked about it with the Bloodline. Solo's version, they're going to lose that match. Like, right now, unless something changes, I feel pretty good about Roman and company winning that match. But something's got to break after that, because that feels like your big civil war, right? Everything's on the line. Everything's at stake. Everything you've been building since WrestleMania 40 for Solo, it's all on the line in that match. If they can't come out on top, then that's where you start to see some cracks and you start to see some things change. And so bring The Rock back there, maybe bring The Rock back shortly after to hint at whatever is to come. So we'll see what happens. But all right, let's see what we keep going down the line here. So look, it's not a bad point here either. I mean, Jey having a break, it's too at some point. You sometimes it's like if you're gonna have a guy who has been so visible like Jey has for a really long time now, and he is at the height of his popularity. Also, not a terrible idea just to say, you know what, take a couple weeks off, like just sit in the background a little bit. Although he just kind of got back in the PLE rotation, but again, I think with Jey, the entrance sells itself, but you also can use kind of the less is more thing with Jey sometimes too, in terms of like just the matches and the in-ring stuff, because you don't need it. Like you don't, and I know it sounds silly to say that, but Jey can be Jey and still be, like we said, one of the most top over guys in the company. And so yeah, I think we'll see what happens with that. Well, again, I'm curious to see what Jey does coming out of this thing in Survivor Series, because there's plenty of ways you can go with that. With all those different members, I don't think you're just going to have the Usos reunite, because I think Jey is too valuable now on his own. So, but maybe we'll see. Solo and Jacob Fatu at WrestleMania. That's an interesting prediction there. You could see it, right? I mean, you think about if you're outlining the WrestleMania matches, and even if you don't know the actual matches, if you just do the pairings, Cody, like I said, I feel like is going to be involved with Rock and Roman at some point, and Orton maybe is tied in there somewhere. I think, and we haven't talked about this, but as it stands now, I think you've got a pretty clear direction with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. Because if Sami is going to reunite with the Bloodline, well, what have we seen Kevin Owens do, right? He's gotten pissed off at Cody and all this other stuff. If Zayn reunites with the Bloodline, all of a sudden he's buddy-buddy now again. I think Owens and Sami makes a lot of sense. So if you start to say, all right, well, who's left? Well, Solo's got to do something, right? Jacob Fatu's got to do something. I don't know. Do they do Jacob Fatu and Braun Breaker after what they saw on Raw a couple weeks ago? Maybe. The fans were certainly into that, but it would seem like a natural direction. And look, Solo, hey, guys, I'm not oblivious, okay? I know that people have looked at Solo Sikoa and, calling him whatever, the Timu Bloodline, like all this other stuff, but I think Solo has gotten better in this role. Like, there were some ups and downs there for a while, but I think over the past several weeks, and it helps having Roman there because I think it's, he can more play off of him, but I think getting Jimmy and Jey back into this, I think Solo has gotten better in this role. So what does Solo do coming out of this? If he gets kicked out, is he going to go back and, be the sidekick for Roman Reigns again? I don't think so, but Solo's an interesting figure too coming out of this whole thing. So we'll find out. All right, what else we got? So, yeah, can't believe Roman got pinned. I think a lot of people were probably of that thinking, but like I said, it was something where I mentioned Solo needed some momentum, and the best way to get him the momentum was probably to pin Roman of all the people, right? Again, pinning Jimmy again. He's already pinned Jimmy once in the past couple weeks, right, in the Solo match, pun intended. But he gets the pin on Reigns here. That gives Reigns a reason to look at this and say, all right, man, here I am. I just got pinned, right? And, Jacob Fatu plays a role in that. And he just got pinned by Solo. So now Reigns is all of a sudden all the way back down, and he's even more down after he's sitting there, kind of that visual of him just looking down after Sami and him collide in the middle of the ring. So I think, that they went with it. They decided we got to get Solo something big here, and was pinning Roman Reigns. So gives Reigns a reason to come back for vengeance, and that entire group, and they'll do that at War Games. So, hey, Juan, great to hear from you as always, man. One of the biggest supporters here at the channel, and appreciate it from day one when we had, no one subscribed to this channel. Now we got 10,000 plus. Juan's been here since day one, so really appreciate you, man. As always, hope you're having a great day. All right, so let's see what else we got. Let's see what we got here. Back to Jey Uso. Jacob turns on Solo and have a singles run. That's what makes, Jacob versus Breaker. Yeah, I said I think they're definitely going to do that match. After the reaction they got from the crowd, there's no way they're ignoring that. And look, whether that's a WrestleMania match or not, I think some of the reports were saying that the WWE was pretty stunned by the reaction. Just as, I don't know if I was stunned, but like I said, that's one of those you probably weren't really thinking about until you actually see these two guys on screen together. You get that vibe, you get that energy as they're walking towards each other, and you're thinking, okay, sign me up. Sign me up for that. So, but hey, speaking of Bron Breakker, we got to throw this in here too. We hadn't talked about this yet. Bill Goldberg is having his retirement match next year. That was reported today, which not even reported. Goldberg announced it. I think it was on ESPN's College Game Day or whatever. He's going to have his retirement match next year, just as John Cena is. So I don't think they're going to have it together. But Goldberg's got to have a retirement match next year. Who should he face? Is Bron Breakker one of those guys that should be in that conversation to face Goldberg? I wouldn't be against that at all. So you guys let me know your thoughts on Goldberg's retirement match. Who do you want to see him face in that final match, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in the near future. So Jason asks, when will the Wise Man be back? I think the Wise Man's back very soon because now we mentioned what was the order going to be and when these guys are going to come back together. Well, we realized after Jimmy came back, all right, now it's got to be Jey, then it's got to be Sami, now it's got to be the Wise Man. He's got to be the person to get them all back on the same page before November the 30th. So he's got 4 weeks. So we'll see what kind of plan he can put together. So Jay Peasy here. The aftermath of Bloodline, great storytelling, how the OGs need to get their stuff together. Yeah, they got to get it together because you saw them all walking out kind of individually, right? I think WWE may have put that on their TikTok or something. But they showed the visual of everybody walking out kind of individually, and they're all pissed off. And you're thinking, all right, if we don't come together now, it's over. Like, we are not going to, avenge the Bloodline here because Solo, they just won, right? Like, they just got the one up on us. And here we are. Like, what do we do now? And so we got to get through Roman's issues with Sami and everybody else's issues with each other. And the only person that can talk their way through all that has got to be Paul Heyman. So yeah, I think I think the way they're telling the story was perfect. Even though again the match may have left some to be desired for some people, but I do think the way they did the aftermath was really good. I really like that. All right, so let's see. Let's go to this one. J-Hag wants to know, could we see The Rock join in for War Games, making it 5-on-5? I just, we talked about The Rock possibility a while back. I feel like I just don't see it, and I think it was one where if you were gonna make it very clear, like when he came back at Bad Blood, if they were gonna have him in War Games, you feel like he would have already stayed kind of in the picture here. But the fact is, he hasn't been mentioned since Bad Blood, right? And so initially there was that thought, if you're going to put him in a match, you can protect The Rock because you don't want to be doing, a one-on-one match or anything like that, 30 minutes with The Rock right now. It's just not going to happen. But, at least now I think what can bring The Rock back is what happens in the War Games match. And so I think that's more important, honestly, than even having him in the match. I think it's what happens there is going to be what brings him back for good. And, by for good, we don't mean every week for a year, but for whatever the big story is going to be heading into WrestleMania 41. So that's my prediction. So Barry Uso says here, and this is something we talked about earlier with the four-way match on Raw that they're going to do. I was definitely thinking we were getting Gunther versus CM Punk at Survivor Series. But now, give me your predictions, guys. Like, the four-way match is Rollins versus Priest versus Dominic versus Sheamus. I don't see Rollins winning because I think Bronson Reed is going to destroy that man on Raw. I don't see Sheamus winning. So it's either Priest or Dominic. And, I thought they were going to do Gunther versus Priest maybe at Saturday night's main event, which is still a month or more away. Are they going to do Gunther versus Dominic at Survivor Series? Because that's the story they've told the past couple weeks, right? Is Dominic trying to prove that he's a world champion. But is that your World Heavyweight Championship match at Survivor Series? I don't know. But maybe they see something here. Maybe they're all in on this new Judgment Day. But it's a tough call on that match because, again, I think Priest seems like the most obvious choice. But, do they decide to do a Dominic match before you get to Survivor Series? Punk's involved somehow. I would have thought that Punk would be in that match, but maybe not. So, but there you go. So, all right, let's see what else we got. Says, okay, thinking about wrestling all day, every day, go do something else fun. Well, I try, but I just keep thinking about wrestling all day, every day. So I apologize for that. All right, so let's see what else we got here. I do agree with this. I think The Rock's focus is on Cody, and I think that's where how The Rock ties into Bloodline stuff. Like, we know they built this whole entire thing up around, Rock wanting to get the title from Cody. Like, we go back to WrestleMania 40, right? It's all been about kind of Cody with the Bloodline kind of in the stratosphere. Like, he's not really directly, made these hints or anything in terms of how it plays in the Bloodline. It's all had Cody involved with it. And so I don't know if I see The Rock versus Cody one-on-one at WrestleMania 41. That may still be the plan, but you've got to think, like I just said a minute ago, is The Rock going to do a 30-minute one-on-one match against Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania? And I'm not saying it has to be 30, right? Give him a minute, like could be 20, 25, whatever, but I don't know. And that's where, like, the triple threat match, it makes a lot of sense from their standpoint, just because you can protect The Rock in there. He can lay out at times while Cody and Roman are doing their thing and all that. So, but Rock's coming back for the championship. And, he's the people's champion. He's coming back for Cody. And so that's where, like we mentioned, like the Orton thing, when do they do that? Because, you gotta have something with Cody and The Rock, whether it's that singles match or whether it's a triple threat match. You gotta have it. So we'll see. But, is Punk gonna return to the Rumble? Maybe. Again, you've got Punk and Drew kind of taking some time off here. At least they have since their brutal match, Hell in a Cell. So maybe Punk's out a little bit longer. But I would think you probably want Punk back sooner rather than later. But if he doesn't have anything to do with Survivor Series, then there's no point in bringing him back just yet. So you can kind of build everything for that Raw on Netflix debut, because that's going to be maybe the biggest show they've ever done, will be that show. So maybe do something there with Punk and Cena or something to get everybody kind of geared up for the Rumble. And I still think we're getting Punk versus Rollins at WrestleMania 41. But we'll see how they get there. But, look, what does Reigns do after Survivor Series? I think he may not play a role in anything until we get to the Rumble. So he may disappear for a month or so. Wouldn't be surprised by that. So, we'll find out. All right. So, Gregory, you missed the show. I'll just give you a quick thoughts on this. Was it anything exciting? Yeah, there's some good stuff on the show. I would recommend watching it. I just think it's, again, the Crown Jewel Championship matches, that they were there to crown the first champions. I think you had a better than expected triple threat match for the U.S. title. I think, Owens and Orton, even though it wasn't an official match, I think that's worth watching just because it's going to tell a lot of the story moving forward. Again, I don't think there's anything bad on the show. I think it's just a lot of it was storyline driven, things that were done to get to, the next thing. And so, may not have just been about the matches. It may have been what, all the storyline development and everything. So, all right, let's see what we got. Yeah, Melvin, I love you, Solo. Everyone should love Solo, just like Jacob Fatu. We should all aspire to show our love for Solo, just like Jacob Fatu does on a weekly basis. And look, good point here, Brian. I mean, Roman pinned Solo. Solo gets the win back by pinning him here. So now you're even, right? Now you got the big even, and what do you know? There just happens to be a PLE in 4 weeks that we can decide the rubber match for the winner. So that's how you do it there. So. All right, so here we go. T-Rob, Solo's Bloodline is not intended to be a Bloodline 2.0. Yeah, it's really been the Solo show. Like, you've had Jacob Fatu and the Tongans play a role in everything, but this was really a vehicle for Solo to take that next step. And some people would argue he hasn't maybe taken as big of a step as they thought, but it was always going to be ridiculous, I think, to kind of think that Solo was just going to become Roman Reigns. It was never going to happen, right? It's just, come on, and the thing is, you got to remember, how long ago was Solo in NXT? It was not that long ago when you really, all things considered. Like, this guy is still young. And so, again, I think Solo he's doing better work now than he did when this thing started, and I think that's all you can ask for. So, he's made development. He's progressed, I think, in terms of this role that he's in. So, and also remember, too, it helps having the big, monster on the other side, too, right? It helps having Roman Reigns back. It's different when Solo's out there, commanding orders against people who aren't really directly involved in the best part of the story. So now he's got something he can use, and that's where, like, having Jimmy back, having Jey in there to kind of go back and forth with Sami, Solo and Sami have had the relationship. So, it's those kind of things. So I think that helps Solo for sure. So, all right, I know I'm way behind on your comments. Like, I'm looking at some of these, I'm like, okay, I'm addressing comments that were made 10 minutes ago, so I'm going to try to quickly speed through here and catch up on some stuff. And see what we have here. But again, guys, if you're jumping in for the first time, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. You can leave a super chat. We'll get to that there. Mike wants to know, I'm glad you brought this up. Goldberg Cena, I mean, again, you think we're going to get a Goldberg Cena match? Did we ever get that match? You guys have to remember. Look, my brain all runs together sometimes on these. But, could we see a Goldberg versus Cena match next year? Both having retirement runs. Give me the spear on Cena. Goldberg be the main retire. Can we get Goldberg versus Bret Hart? You think that's possible? So I don't know, but yeah, Goldberg's having his retirement match next year. Curious to know what you guys think about that. All right, I'm gonna speed on through here. I'm gonna try to get some of these. So, by the way, T-Rob's all for the Dominic title match. I think they're gonna give Dominic a title match. Why bring it up the way they have? Why push it the way they have? I think they're gonna do it. So, none of it happened since Survivor Series, right? So, we'll find out. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. I'm going to scroll on down. Some people are not happy about Roman losing. I'll tell you that. And again, they're not the only ones probably. So, all right, Robert. I'm going to get to this one. Rates the show overall if you rank. I didn't really give a strong ranking. Right-hand Cam earlier gave it a 7.5. I said I think that's about right. I'd probably go 7, somewhere in there. I thought, again, nothing on this show that I felt like, man, what an absolute waste of time, right? I mean, there was a case there for a while, in WWE land years ago where I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what is this show? It's not like that anymore. Like, they're at least, even if you go in, expecting something and you're like, okay, every match should be 5 stars. Well, that's not going to happen. But if you go in and thinking, all right, we're going to get something out of this, even in the matches here where maybe you said, all right, it's a little sloppy or this kind of stuff, you at least got some advancement, with the stories and those kind of things. So I thought this was a perfectly fine show. And again, I think that the thing that may be hard about this show is that the Crown Jewel stuff is literally going to just exist within this show each year, with the titles, the 2 titles themselves. So you kind of look at that and say, well, does it really defeat the purpose and all that? But we know why they're doing it, and they're going to keep doing it. And so everything else, though, I thought probably achieved what it wanted to achieve. You didn't get any title changes, which we didn't think would happen with the women's title match or the U.S. title match. And so it was really about a couple of those grudge matches. One never happened, but I still think it worked perfectly fine with Owens and Orton. And so, yeah, I was fine with everything on this show. So, all right, what else we got here? Even though I did get the winners wrong, like I said, on several of these matches. I was not fine with that. I wanted to keep my prediction streak going, but that doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So, why did The Rock return at Bad Blood? In all honesty, like, what was it? Rock was in Georgia at the time, and I think from what I saw with the reports, like, basically, Rock's just like, hey, I'm available, and you guys know, I say it all the time. If Rock's available, they're going to let him do whatever he wants, because he's The Rock, and like it or not, like, he's one of the biggest stars in the world, and so they're going to always put him out there if they get that opportunity, no matter whether it ties into something that's happening immediately or a year down the line, right? They're going to always put The Rock out there if he wants to be out there. And so, yeah, I just think it's going to be that way. For as long as The Rock wants to be involved, it's going to be, he may come out here, he may do this, he may not come back for 6 months. I just think that's how they're going to do it. So, Mark, is Kevin Owens performing as a heel better for business? Yes, I think 100%. I think Owens is 100% a better heel than he is a babyface. So I think this is the best. I think this can be the best stuff Kevin Owens has done in years, and he's done a lot of good stuff. But I mean, this is. I think this is really good for Kevin Owens because for a while there, again, you're blending in. If it's Cody, Orton, and Owens, guess who's number 3 in that group, right? In terms of like you're talking about how the company views it, the fan reaction, all that. Like Owens is going to be the 3rd babyface of that group behind Cody and Orton. But now, like, this guy can be the top heel, right, outside of the bloodline on that side. So I think it's a great opportunity for him. So, anyways, let's keep going here. T-Rob, I'm not even watching it right now. Is Florida up halftime on Georgia? My goodness. There you go. Well, curious about that. So, what's the deal with Brock? I don't think Brock's coming back anytime soon. I know people were talking about that. That's a possibility. What was that? Did we talk about that at Bad Blood? We mentioned, could he be someone potentially that comes back? I just don't think it's happening with the whole, again, there were the reports out there about how they had mentioned him on TV, I think. Was it on Raw or something? But I don't think there was no reason for doing that in terms of like bringing him actually back to the company. I think it was just playing it as part of the story, whatever they were telling. But again, I don't see Brock coming back anytime soon. But things can change, as we know, when it comes to WWE and that kind of stuff. So maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But anyways, all right, guys, we're going to wrap up here shortly. But again, we usually try to go about an hour on these things for these PLE reaction shows. And nice to have this one during the day. Again, sometimes these are harder for people to watch. But, again, it's nice to have these on a bit earlier. But yeah, this was overall, I think, if you didn't watch the show, I would recommend it. I'd say go back and watch it. I think there was some good stuff on the card. I think there was some, important storyline developments that you have to see probably going into Raw and SmackDown. I'm excited about the 4-way match on Raw for the number 1 contenders. Damian Priest, Seth Rollins, Sheamus, Dominic. I think there's going to be something coming out of there. Multiple stories probably with Bronson Reed probably going after Seth Rollins. What happens with Priest and Dominic? Dominic pinned Damian Priest on Raw, right? So does Dominic get another win here via the interference from the Judgment Day? We'll find out. But again, guys, I appreciate you joining in on this live stream. Got a lot of fun videos on the way. And yeah, we keep churning right along here. We got Survivor Series coming up in 4 weeks. Then guess what? It's starting to get time for Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 41 season, and that's when things really pick up. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think kind of the momentum that the WWE has right now because there's a lot of good stuff going on. And so a lot of big matches still brewing. And remember, too, like we just said, we got a Goldberg retirement match next year. We got a John Cena retirement tour next year. So many big things that are still to come over the next year or so in WWE and probably beyond that. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff. But again, guys, appreciate you watching as always. I keep teasing it, but I'm working on, and I already have some videos finished, some old kind of, retro Attitude Era type content that I'm going to put up for you guys. Got some series. We're going to start with that. So if you enjoy watching the current WWE and you're also a fan of, Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression Era type stuff, we're going to do some videos on that, kind of looking back and kind of doing the same way we do now, kind of looking back at storylines and kind of a lot of fun stuff during that era. So, all right, guys, on the way out, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Appreciate you watching as always. We'll do more of these live streams talking about WWE PLEs and try to do some occasionally for Raw and SmackDown. But for now, again, I appreciate you watching, and I talk to you again here soon at Wrestling Reaction.